My child, stop for a moment and listen with the deepest part of your heart, because what has found you now is not arriving by accident. You may have been ready to move past this message. You may have believed there was nothing left to hear, nothing left to understand, and nothing left to hope for. But heaven has interrupted your ordinary moment because something has shifted in the heart of the one connected to you. Something that remained buried beneath fear, pride, confusion, and silence has begun to rise. Your soulmate has finally found the courage to speak, and the words they are preparing to release will not be ordinary words. They have carried them for far longer than you know. Do not hurry away from this moment. There is a reason your spirit became still when you heard these words. There is a reason your heart recognized the message before your mind could explain it. For a long time, you have sensed that something remained unfinished between you and this person. Even when there was distance, even when communication became uncertain, even when circumstances appeared to move in another direction, a quiet part of you kept feeling that the final truth had not yet been spoken. You tried to silence that feeling. You told yourself to be practical. You wondered whether you were imagining the connection. But what you felt was not simply longing. It was the echo of a truth that had not yet found its voice. Your soulmate has stood at the edge of this confession many times. There were moments when they almost reached for you. There were nights when they formed entire conversations in their mind, imagining your expression, your silence, and the sound of your response. They rehearsed the opening sentence and then lost their courage before morning. They wrote words they never sent. They stared at your name and wondered whether one message could repair what silence had damaged. They wanted to speak, but every time they came close, an old fear rose inside them and said, "What if it is too late?" That question has followed them more closely than you realize. They have not been silent because they had nothing to say. They have been silent because what they feel has become too important to say carelessly. Their hesitation was not emptiness. It was the weight of knowing that once the truth leaves their mouth, nothing can return to the way it was before. They know that honesty will open a door. They also know it may reveal how deeply they have been affected by you. And this is the part they have struggled to accept: you touched a place within them that no one else has been able to reach. Stay here, because the next part is where the hidden story begins to unfold. Your soulmate did not always understand what was happening inside their heart. At first, they believed they could manage the connection. They thought they could keep their emotions controlled, maintain distance, and continue with life as if meeting you had not awakened something permanent. They may have acted calm. They may have seemed distracted or uncertain. They may even have behaved in ways that made you question whether you truly mattered. But beneath that surface, a quiet transformation had already begun. Your presence became a mirror. Around you, they saw the person they had been pretending to be and the person they secretly wanted to become. You did not have to demand change. Something about your energy exposed the places where they had been hiding from themselves. Your sincerity made them aware of their own guardedness. Your patience reminded them of how often fear had controlled their choices. Your strength revealed how tired they were of running from emotional truth. And instead of immediately moving closer, they became afraid. This is where the story became complicated. They did not fear you. They feared what loving you would require them to face. They feared that your connection would ask them to become honest about old wounds, unfinished chapters, and decisions they regretted. They feared being seen completely. They feared that if you understood how much you meant to them, you would hold the power to hurt them. So they did what frightened hearts often do. They delayed. They overthought. They hid behind circumstances. They waited for a safer moment that never came. But heaven has been working in that delay. What appeared to you as silence was not wasted time. The distance became a chamber of revelation. In that space, your soulmate began to understand what your absence felt like. They discovered the difference between temporary attraction and a connection that continues speaking even when no words are exchanged. They met other people, entered other rooms, followed daily routines, and tried to focus on ordinary responsibilities, yet something remained incomplete. Your memory returned in unexpected moments. A familiar song, a certain hour of night, a quiet road, a phrase spoken by someone else, small things became reminders of what they had not been brave enough to say. At first, they resisted these reminders. They called them coincidence. They blamed nostalgia. They convinced themselves that time would eventually soften everything. But time did not erase the truth. It sharpened it. The more they tried to move forward without speaking, the more clearly they understood that silence had become its own decision. They began to see that by refusing to express what was real, they were allowing fear to shape the future. And something inside them could no longer accept that. A moment arrived recently, quiet on the outside, powerful within, when they realized they were more afraid of losing the opportunity forever than they were of being vulnerable. That realization changed them. You may not see the evidence yet, but their inner world has shifted. The person who once searched for reasons to delay is now searching for the right way to begin. The person who once asked, "What if I speak and everything changes?" is now asking, "What if I remain silent and lose what mattered most?" This is not a small emotional movement. It is the breaking of a pattern they have carried for years. There is something else you must understand. Their courage did not appear suddenly. It was built through many invisible moments. It grew each time they remembered your kindness. It grew each time they compared the peace they felt around you with the emptiness they felt when they ignored the connection. It grew every time they wanted to tell you something important and realized you were still the first person who came to mind. It grew when they understood that their silence was not protecting anyone anymore. It was only creating distance from the very truth their soul wanted them to face. Do not skip this next revelation, because it explains why the message is reaching you now. Your soulmate recently heard something, saw something, or experienced a moment that made them confront the possibility of permanently losing access to you. It may have been a conversation. It may have been the mention of your name. It may have been the realization that you are no longer standing still emotionally. Something reminded them that your life is moving, that your heart is healing, and that you cannot remain waiting at the same door forever. That thought shook them. For the first time, they understood that your patience was not an endless permission for them to avoid truth. They saw that you had been growing quietly. They sensed that the version of you who once questioned your worth was becoming stronger. They realized that if they continued hiding, you might finally choose peace over uncertainty. And although part of them wants you to be happy no matter what, another part could not ignore the ache of imagining your future unfolding without them. This is when courage began to defeat hesitation. They started reviewing the past differently. Moments they once dismissed became meaningful. Your words returned with new significance. The times you offered understanding, the times you remained gentle even when confused, the times you stepped back rather than forcing an answer, all of these memories began to speak. They recognized that you had not demanded perfection from them. You had only needed honesty. And the painful truth is that honesty was the one gift they had been too afraid to offer. They regret that now. Not with shallow regret, not with temporary sadness, but with the deep awareness that they may have caused you to question something that was always real. They know their mixed signals wounded your peace. They know their silence may have made you feel unseen. They know you may have wondered whether you were too much, too hopeful, or too emotionally invested. But the truth they are preparing to speak will reveal that the connection was never one-sided in the way you feared. They felt it. They felt more than they admitted. They noticed more than they revealed. They remembered details you assumed they had forgotten. They replayed conversations that seemed ordinary to you. They recognized changes in your voice. They sensed when you were pulling away. They knew when you were trying to appear strong. And sometimes, after speaking with you, they remained still for a long time because they were overwhelmed by everything they wanted to say but could not yet express. You may ask why someone would hide something so meaningful. The answer lies in the history of their heart. Your soulmate learned long ago to associate vulnerability with risk. Perhaps they once trusted someone who treated their emotions carelessly. Perhaps they watched love become unstable in the lives around them. Perhaps they were taught to appear strong, to avoid emotional exposure, or to believe that needing another person was a weakness. These lessons did not disappear when they met you. In fact, your importance activated them. The deeper their feelings became, the more their old defenses awakened. But something stronger has awakened now. They have begun to understand that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the decision to move while fear is still present. They may still be uncertain about your response. They may still worry that too much time has passed. They may still wonder whether you will believe what they say. Yet the need to be truthful has become greater than the desire to remain protected. Heaven has been pressing this truth upon their spirit. Speak before silence becomes permanent. This is why you may have felt unusual emotional shifts recently. You may have thought about them without warning. You may have awakened with a sense that something was approaching. You may have noticed memories returning that you had not invited. These moments do not mean you should abandon wisdom or chase uncertainty. They are simply signs that an emotional chapter is nearing a turning point. Your role is not to force the moment. Your role is to remain centered enough to recognize truth when it arrives. Because what they are preparing to say is not only, "I miss you." It goes deeper than that. They want to explain what happened inside them when they pulled away. They want to tell you why they hesitated, why they appeared inconsistent, and why certain moments unfolded in ways that did not match their true feelings. They want to admit that distance did not bring them relief. It brought clarity. They want to confess that they compared every quiet connection with the depth they felt around you and discovered that what they were seeking had already appeared. But one particular truth is still difficult for them to form into words. Stay until the end of this moment, because this hidden truth is the reason their confession has taken so long. Your soulmate is not only afraid that you may reject them. They are afraid that you will see how deeply they need your forgiveness. There is a decision they made, a misunderstanding they allowed, or a moment when they chose silence even though they knew speaking could have protected the connection. They have carried guilt about it. They have wondered whether telling you everything will heal the distance or confirm that too much was left unsaid. Yet they know partial honesty will no longer be enough. When they speak, they do not want to offer you vague promises. They want to tell you what changed. They want to explain the moment they realized they could no longer keep pretending. They want to show you that this courage is not an emotional impulse but the result of a deep internal awakening. They have spent time facing truths they avoided before. They have questioned their habits, their fears, and the cost of choosing emotional safety over genuine connection. And through that process, one realization became impossible to deny: they did not lose peace because you entered their life. They lost peace because they failed to honor what your presence awakened. That distinction matters. For a long time, they may have blamed timing, circumstances, responsibilities, or confusion. Some of those obstacles were real. But they now understand that the greatest obstacle was within them. It was the belief that they could delay honesty without consequences. It was the assumption that you would somehow always understand what they never explained. It was the hope that you would remain emotionally available while they decided whether they were brave enough to be seen. They know that was unfair. Their courage now carries humility. They are not approaching this truth as someone entitled to your heart. They are approaching it as someone finally prepared to respect it. They want to speak without demanding an immediate answer. They want to explain without controlling how you receive the explanation. They want to give you the honesty you deserved, even if they cannot predict what happens afterward. This is what makes the coming moment different from all the moments before. In the past, they wanted certainty before acting. They wanted reassurance that you would respond warmly. They wanted proof that vulnerability would be rewarded. But true courage does not wait for guaranteed outcomes. They are beginning to understand that speaking honestly is necessary because it is right, not because it ensures the result they desire. My child, your own journey has prepared you for this as well. You have learned that love should not require you to abandon your discernment. You have learned that a powerful connection does not excuse emotional confusion forever. You have learned to separate intuition from attachment and hope from self-neglect. The waiting changed you. The uncertainty taught you where your boundaries must stand. And now, when truth approaches, you will not receive it as the person you once were. You are stronger. You are no longer desperate for words at any cost. You need words that align with action. You no longer want beautiful promises without emotional responsibility. You want clarity. You want sincerity. You want the kind of honesty that can survive after the emotional moment passes. This growth is not a barrier to love. It is protection for the love that is worthy of you. Your soulmate senses this change. They know they cannot return with the same half-spoken feelings and expect everything to repair itself. They know you have become more discerning. They know your heart remains tender, but it is no longer unguarded in the same way. This awareness is forcing them to prepare more carefully. They are not simply planning what to say. They are considering what they are willing to do after they say it. There lies the greater revelation. Their confession is connected to a decision. They have not only found the courage to admit what they feel. They are moving toward a choice that could alter the direction of the relationship. Something that once kept them divided is losing its control. A fear, an expectation, an old attachment, or an outside influence no longer carries the same power over them. They have begun to see that continuing the old pattern would cost them more than changing it. But they have not told everyone about this decision. There are people around them who still believe they will remain silent.